2024 had a ton of games, most of which I didn't play. There were some I wanted to play but never got around to it, some I couldn't play because I still don't have a PS5, and some I did play and wanted to like but were ultimately pretty disappointing. However, even with all of those issues, I still found plenty of games to enjoy, so here are the 5 best games I played of 2024. Number 5. Marvel Rivals. My perspective on this game steadily swings between thorough enjoyment and pure unchecked hatred depending on whether I'm able to have a decent match or getting my ass roundhouse kicked entirely off of my body. But the fact that I've put well over 100 hours into the game over the past month clearly indicates that I must be enjoying it more often than not. In what is essentially another Overwatch clone, Marvel Rivals brings back some of that same magic that its inspiration delivered nearly a decade ago, but with the addition of 35 mostly familiar Marvel characters pulling the reins. And while it clones game modes, many of the current character abilities, and the initial setup of class choices, it switches it up just enough by pulling the perspective back to third person, which opens up the mechanics to allow for faster paced combat and melee characters that don't have your eyeballs planted in the torso of your opponents while you hit them. While it does need some balance to mix up the meta and maybe a reconsideration of some of these ridiculous cosmetic prices, it seems like it's leveraging a strong start right at the end of 2024 into a promising future going into 2025. Number 4. Neva. I had a feeling that the follow-up to Grease from Nomada Studio was going to be good, and I was right about that. And even though it didn't dig into my soul to find the most devastating moment from my past to drag up and shove into my tear-soaked face, Neva made a much richer and even more visually impressive game that I thoroughly enjoyed. With the combination of majestic watercolor backgrounds drifting through seasons, a solid amount of puzzle platforming prowess, competent combat, and a nearly wordless story still meant to tug at the heartstrings, there was plenty to like. For a game that's only 4 or 5 hours long, it uses that time to efficiently and effectively make you feel as many feelings as possible and leaves you with a memorable impact that will have you hugging your dog dear wolf elk tight anytime that you venture into the forest. Number 3. Parking Garage Rally Circuit. The name of this game tells you everything that it contains, but with that simplicity comes a classic arcade driving experience that has a bit more depth than it seems on the surface. But that surface also looks like it was ripped straight through time from the mid-1990s with a purpose-built Sega Saturn aesthetic that steadily grew on me as I spent more time with it in my face. Yet beyond old-school graphics and the idea of a rally race happening in, around, near, and through parking garages, the core of the game is about mechanics you use to turn and burn across that track. The drifting system allows you to take turns at a variety of sharp angles and make superhuman redirections with a simple flick of the controller stick. But these drifts also give you a speed boost that stacks with previous speed boosts, allowing you to get your blocky-looking car to speeds that are somehow more irresponsible than putting a racetrack in a garage full of parked cars. And you can use all of that reckless speed to try to climb your way up leaderboards with people who have outright disrespectful amounts of skill at navigating these strange indoor-outdoor multi-level arenas. Number 2. Pacific Drive. In what is easily one of the most surprising games of the year for me, this very unique take on the idea of an extraction driver has you zapped into a mostly abandoned region of the Pacific Northwest that was subject to an experiment gone awry, leaving it full of anomalous hazards, some of which have come to life in disturbing ways and will make your adventure ever deeper into the Olympic exclusion zone progressively more chaotic and dangerous. Your task is to explore as many sections of this area as you can without your car being ripped apart or your body being irradiated to death, forcing you back to your garage haven empty-handed. On your ventures into the ever-changing maps, you'll have to collect as much garbage and garbage-adjacent material as you can fit into the early 80s station wagon you're bound to in order to help you build, equip, and upgrade it with tools and parts that will help you make it just a little bit further into the unknown. And you'll do all of this while listening to a fascinating trio of disembodied voices guiding your way and revealing the mysteries of this world. At least when you're not jamming out to a soundtrack blasting from your car radio that's so damn good that I made a playlist of it to listen to when I'm not fighting for my life trying to collect random bits of scrap metal. Honorable mention: Frostpunk 2. Despite the contentious perspective from many people and my initial distaste for the new, much broader and higher level management of this warm little nugget in a frozen wasteland, this title ultimately grew on me like so much body hair. The somewhat simplified city building was expanded through the branches of a huge tech tree that was meshed with a new system of faction appeasement that gave me just enough political discourse at the most inappropriate time that it felt like real life. Growing a much larger city and dealing with the problems beyond just the part where everyone is a coal seam away from freezing to death led to a less focused but ultimately very compelling experience. And the branching narrative made what could have been an annoying chapter feature into something I actually liked progressing through and reaching that classic ending of here's all the places you did and didn't fuck up. Number 1. Helldivers 2. When I first heard of Helldivers 2, the only information I had was that it was extremely broken. With only that information to go on, I held off playing it for a couple of months, but it called to me. Within moments of being rocketed into the ground at bone-crushing speeds and stepping out into a wasteland crawling with gigantic flesh-ripping bugs with only my trusty machine gun to protect me, I knew I was in my element. Decades of being a Starship Troopers fanboy had conditioned me to lay waste to these creatures without remorse or even comprehension that the game was still a little janky while it was happening, and that instinctual lust for carnage was only enhanced as I moved over to the fight with the Terminator-style robot enemies that found all new ways to separate my body into unliving pieces. The best part about Helldivers 2 though is that while the developers were a relatively lean company totally overwhelmed by their newfound popularity and they had to contend with Sony being dicks, they stayed the course and kept updating and improving the game to make it into the incredible experience it is today. As a new enemy faction has taken root and provided even more variety to the gameplay, they keep delivering cool weapons, stratagems, and cosmetics to draw you back into the excessively violent but satisfyingly cathartic warfare. And as I creep up on 200 hours in the game, I still find this along with the entertaining jingoistic lore and dialogue to be just as fun as it was when I started. Helldivers 2 has endured for almost a full year now, and if the content keeps coming and the universe keeps growing, I can see myself enjoying it just as much for another year. And as we step forward into 2025, I'd like to thank everyone for sticking around and or showing up for hot takes, warm satire, and tepid commentary in 2024. If you'd like to view these weird-ass videos hours and sometimes several hours before they go live, as well as get some behind-the-scenes bullshit from me, you can join on Patreon or YouTube for that opportunity. But if you just want to see more of the regular bullshit, like this video and check out these other abbreviated reviews.